The space station Lyrian 7 shone like a jewel in the black void. Its lights reflected off the hulls of hundreds of starships, and the hum of engines, chatter, and merchants filled every corridor. Humans, aliens, and travelers from countless systems moved through the bustling marketplace. Traders shouted, selling goods of every shape and size, from glowing minerals to rare electronics. Among the crowd walked Ethan, a young human engineer. He was 19, lean but strong from years of work in shipyards, and carried a simple toolkit on his shoulder. His brown hair fell slightly over his eyes, and his expression was calm, almost unreadable. He moved with purpose, scanning the market for a vendor selling rare energy cells he had promised to deliver. Humans were not common here. Many aliens looked down on them, calling them weak or primitive. Ethan had heard it all before. He had learned early not to react. His skills, not words, were his strongest shield. At the same time, the young alien princess Ziara walked through the marketplace. She was 19, tall and graceful, with shimmering silver skin and bright violet eyes. She wore a simple disguise, a cloak and hood, but even covered, she radiated confidence. Ziara was heir to the Clitherian Empire, a powerful and proud alien race. She was used to being treated with respect or fear. Yet today, she was curious. She wanted to see what this strange human race was really like. Ziara moved through the crowd with her usual pride, noticing traders bowing and aliens stepping aside. But then her eyes fell on Ethan. He was small compared to most Clitherians, but there was something different about him. He did not bow, flinch, or even look impressed. He moved as if the crowded marketplace existed only for his purpose. Curious, Ziara stepped closer. "Human," she said loudly, her voice carrying over the chatter. Every head turned. "Do you really think you belong here? Your kind is weak, fragile, not made for greatness." The crowd gasped. Some laughed nervously. Alien merchants whispered to each other. Ethan stopped, turned slightly, and looked at her. But his face showed no anger, no embarrassment, only calm. Ziara expected him to respond, to defend himself, or at least be frightened. Instead, Ethan did something that shocked everyone. He turned and walked away without a word. Ziara's violet eyes narrowed. She stepped forward, calling after him. "Do you dare ignore me? I am Princess Ziara of the Clitherian Empire." Still, Ethan did not stop. He passed alien merchants, human traders, and small droids, moving toward the vendor he needed to meet. His silence was louder than words. The crowd murmured in confusion. A human ignoring a Clitherian princess? Impossible. Ziara's face turned a shade redder than her cloak. She had been insulted, not by a stranger, but by a human who did not even seem to care. Ethan approached the stall he had been seeking. "I need your energy cells," he said politely but firmly. The vendor, a tall, green-skinned alien, quickly fetched them. "Of course, sir," the alien said, bowing slightly. "These are the last few in stock." Ziara followed him, her curiosity growing into fascination. She had expected humans to beg, to flinch, to show fear. Instead, he moved like he owned the place. Even though she knew humans were not powerful like Clitherians, his calm confidence unsettled her. When Ethan handed over the payment, he kept his eyes on his task, not looking at Ziara. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so the crowd could not hear. "You are bold, human. Most of your kind would cower before me. Why do you not fear me?" Ethan looked at her for a moment. His gaze was steady, calm. Then he shrugged. "I have no reason to fear you. I focus on my work." Ziara blinked. No fear, no hesitation, no arrogance, only quiet confidence. She had never met anyone like this human before. He was small, fragile-looking even, but there was a strange strength about him. "You are strange," she said, half to herself. "Weak, but unafraid." She tried to regain her composure, lifting her chin. "Perhaps you need to learn your place." Ethan did not respond. He packed the energy cells carefully and started to leave the stall. Ziara realized she could not make him respond by shouting or insulting him. That in itself was unusual. Most creatures, even the boldest aliens, would react one way or another to her authority. The princess stepped beside him, careful to match his pace. "Do you think your clever little tricks will impress anyone here?" she asked. "Humans are nothing in the galaxy. Nothing." Ethan glanced at her briefly. His tone was soft, yet firm. "I do not try to impress anyone." Ziara's eyes narrowed further. No one had ever spoken to her this way. The words were not disrespectful, not rude, but they carried weight. He was not afraid, not submissive, yet not defiant. He simply was. For a long moment, the two walked in silence. Ethan moved through the busy marketplace with ease, avoiding collisions and ignoring stares. Ziara, used to control, realized she could not command him. She could insult, but it had no effect. Finally, Ethan reached the docking bay where his small transport ship waited. He lifted the crates of energy cells carefully and began loading them inside. Ziara lingered at the entrance, watching. For the first time, she felt curiosity replace her usual pride and annoyance. "Human," she called, her voice quieter now, almost a whisper. "I will remember you." Ethan glanced at her briefly, then returned to his work. "I do not need to be remembered," he said simply. With that, he closed the hatch and prepared to leave. Ziara stayed a moment longer, watching the small human ship lift off into the stars. She had been insulted, she had tried to provoke him, and yet he had walked away without a word, leaving her unsettled. In the heart of the bustling space station, surrounded by aliens who whispered about the unusual scene, Ziara realized something important. Humans were not what she had been told. They were underestimated, overlooked, yet capable in ways she could not yet understand. And the human who had ignored her insult, the one named Ethan, had done something no other being had. He had stood tall without showing fear, anger, or weakness. Ziara clenched her fists lightly, her violet eyes following his ship as it disappeared into the vast darkness of space. She felt something she had never felt before, a mix of irritation, fascination, and challenge. The game had begun, and she was determined to see just how far this human could go. After Ethan's small ship disappeared into the black void of space, Princess Ziara returned to her royal starship with a swirl of thoughts. She could not stop thinking about the human who had walked away from her insult without a word. He was young, human, and seemingly weak, but something about him had unsettled her. His calm confidence, his quiet strength, it was unlike anything she had ever seen. Ziara paced the polished floors of her starship. The walls shimmered with energy displays and tactical maps, but her mind was elsewhere. "How can a human be so indifferent to me?" she murmured. Her advisors stood silently nearby, unsure how to respond. No one dared to challenge her mood. "You must remember, Princess," said Commander Vale, a tall, armored Clitherian. "Humans are clever in ways we do not always see. Perhaps he is simply clever, not strong." Ziara stopped pacing. "Clever is not enough. I must test him. I will see if this human is worth my notice, or if he is simply another weak creature." With that, she sent a discreet message across the station, a challenge to Ethan. It was carefully worded, not a battle of weapons, but a test of skill. She wanted to see how he thought, how he solved problems, and whether humans could stand beside her in more than words. Ethan received the message the next morning while examining his tools on a quiet asteroid dock. It was delivered by a small, elegant droid carrying the Clitherian seal. The message read, "Human, your calm in the marketplace has caught my attention. I invite you to a challenge. Your skills will be tested. Refusal is unwise. Ethan studied the droid for a moment, then read the message again. A challenge from a princess? Most humans would have ignored it or refused angrily, but Ethan did neither. He recognized the subtle pressure in the message. Refusing might cause trouble, but accepting could be interesting. He finally nodded to himself. "Very well," he said quietly. "I will go." The station's training grounds were vast, filled with holographic devices, drones, and machinery of every kind. Aliens of different species moved around, practicing skills, testing equipment, and observing competitions. In the center, a small platform had been prepared for Ethan's arrival. Ziara was already there, standing tall, her silver cloak gleaming under the artificial lights. "Human," she said as he approached, "you have accepted my challenge. Know this, most who face me fail quickly. You must show skill beyond your kind to impress me." Ethan did not flinch. "I understand. Show me what you wish me to do." Ziara's violet eyes flickered with a mixture of surprise and intrigue. He was not afraid. He did not bow or beg for favor. Instead, he simply waited. She had expected fear or arrogance, but he gave her neither. The challenge was set. A broken Cletherian combat drone, highly advanced and complex, which no technician had been able to repair in months. Ziara explained, "It must be repaired and operational within 1 hour. Fail, and you leave with nothing but your pride." Ethan examined the drone carefully. It was intricate, with glowing circuits, shifting mechanical arms, and energy conduits running in a complex pattern. Most humans would have been overwhelmed, but Ethan's mind worked differently. He saw connections others missed, small patterns and clever shortcuts in the design. He knelt beside the drone, opening panels, tracing circuits, and carefully adjusting components. Ziara circled him, watching, her expression shifting between irritation and fascination. She could not understand how he worked so calmly. Minutes passed. Sparks flew from a damaged panel, and the drone's head spun erratically. Ziara expected failure. She did not expect what came next. Ethan paused, studied the movements, and then reconnected a series of conduits in a way that was unconventional, but perfectly logical. The drone's lights stabilized, its mechanical limbs moved smoothly, and it hummed with life. Ziara's violet eyes widened. "Impossible," she whispered. The crowd of onlookers gasped. A human had repaired a Cletherian combat drone, something their best engineers could not do. Ethan stood and wiped his hands on his pants, looking at Ziara calmly. "It was broken. I fixed it. That is all." Ziara clenched her fists lightly, but her voice carried admiration, though she refused to show it fully. "You are skilled. I did not expect this." "Then you should expect less," Ethan replied quietly, his tone simple and clear. "I do not impress by trying. I focus on the task." Ziara's advisors whispered among themselves. A human who repaired their most advanced machinery? It was unheard of. Some looked uneasy, others were intrigued. The princess herself felt a strange shift. Her initial anger and pride were giving way to curiosity and a challenge she could not ignore. She stepped closer. "Your work is clever, human. But skill alone does not make one strong. Strength is more than mechanics. You will see this soon." Ethan nodded. "I will meet any challenge you give as long as it is fair." The next part of the trial was set. A strategic puzzle involving holographic simulations of space battles. Ethan had to plan a defense against an alien fleet in a limited time, using limited resources. The crowd watched as he studied the projections, his mind moving faster than anyone else. He positioned ships, predicted enemy maneuvers, and created clever traps that even Ziara had not anticipated. When the timer ended, the simulation concluded with a perfect defense. Ziara's mouth opened slightly in surprise. Even she had underestimated him. You think differently, she admitted, her voice soft. Humans are unpredictable. Ethan smiled faintly. Thinking differently is how problems get solved. The tension between them changed. What had started as insult and defiance slowly shifted toward mutual recognition. Ziara still had pride, and Ethan still had calm, but now both felt respect. Not yet friendship, but the spark of something new. As the crowd dispersed, whispering about the remarkable human, Ziara followed Ethan. She did not speak immediately, letting the silence stretch. She had seen something few aliens ever saw, a human who was unshakable, capable, and clever. You have impressed me, Ziara said finally, her voice softer but still firm. Do not think this ends here. I want to see more of what you can do. Ethan looked at her calmly. I will show what I can, when the time comes. For now, I have work to finish. Ziara's violet eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in thought. The human had walked away from insults, repaired their best drone, and solved impossible puzzles, all without raising his voice. She felt something she had never expected: challenge, curiosity, and a strange admiration. As Ethan walked away, the princess whispered to herself, almost a vow, I will learn what makes humans human, and I will see what this one is capable of. Days passed after the challenge at the station, but the image of the human engineer, Ethan, lingered in Princess Ziara's mind. She could not forget how he had calmly repaired the impossible drone and solved the strategic puzzle she had set before him. Something about him challenged everything she had ever believed about humans. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to his work quietly, repairing small ships, upgrading engines, and organizing his tools. He kept to himself, preferring focus to conversation, though he had noticed the whispers that followed him through the station. Many aliens were surprised, or even skeptical, that a human had impressed the Cletherian princess. The calm of the station was shattered when a warning alert sounded across the docking bays. A pirate fleet had been spotted in the nearby sector, attacking a neutral colony. The distress signals were urgent, desperate. The local defense fleet was too small to hold them off, and the pirates were organized and ruthless. Ziara received the alert on her starship and immediately thought of Ethan. If he is as clever as I have seen, he could help, she muttered. Though her pride resisted admitting it, she knew his skills could make a difference. She dispatched a message. Ethan, I need your help. A colony is under attack. Join me at the coordinates immediately. Ethan read the message while working on a small shuttle. He hesitated briefly. Helping a Cletherian princess could be dangerous, but leaving innocent lives at risk was not an option. With a calm nod, he gathered his tools and boarded his ship. The space above the colony was chaotic. Pirate ships swarmed, firing energy blasts, and the colony's defensive turrets struggled to hold them off. Ziara's starship cut through the battle like a blade, commanding smaller fleets with precision. Ethan's small ship moved alongside, carrying the tools and devices he would need. Ziara spoke over the comms. Human, the fleet is strong. You must plan quickly. We cannot afford mistakes. Ethan studied the movements of the pirates, their formation, and the energy flows in their ships. Within minutes, he outlined a strategy that was unorthodox, using simple physics and creative tactics. He suggested using the colony's terrain and gravitational fields to slow down the pirates' advance and set traps that would disable their ships without destroying them. Ziara raised an eyebrow. That is unusual, but it may work. Do it. Ethan set his plan into motion. Small drones he had modified moved silently among the pirate ships, hacking systems and creating minor malfunctions. Traps triggered as predicted. Energy blasts ricocheted harmlessly, engines failed briefly, and pirate ships collided in confusion. Ziara's fleet pressed the advantage, striking decisively while avoiding unnecessary damage. The pirates, shocked and frustrated, began to retreat. Ziara could not hide her admiration. The humans' tactics, simple, clever, unexpected, had turned the tide. She had underestimated the human again, and again, he had proven her wrong. When the battle ended, the colony was safe. Civilians cheered, ships hummed in relief, and Ziara's advisors looked at Ethan with astonishment. Even Ziara, proud and commanding, could not deny his talent. "Remarkable," she said softly, almost to herself. Then, louder, she addressed him. "Human, your tactics saved the colony. Your ingenuity—" "It is impressive." Ethan nodded calmly. "I only used what I know. The pirates underestimated the environment and the resources around them. That was their mistake." Ziara studied him closely. He spoke without arrogance, without seeking praise, yet his confidence was clear. She realized she had underestimated humans not because they lacked strength, but because they thought differently. They saw possibilities where others saw limits. As they returned to the station, Ziara and Ethan spoke more openly. Ziara asked questions about human engineering, human logic, and the ways humans solved problems. Ethan explained simply, showing patience and clarity. "You are not like anyone I have met," Ziara said, her tone softer now, almost curious rather than haughty. "Most beings either fear or try to impress me. You simply act." Ethan smiled faintly. "I focus on the task, not the reaction. That is how problems are solved." The princess nodded, a thoughtful expression on her face. She realized humans' quiet confidence and ingenuity could be a valuable asset, even in a galaxy dominated by powerful alien empires. Meanwhile, the station's crowd whispered about the unusual alliance forming in their midst. A human and a Clitherian princess working together? Few had ever imagined such a thing. Some were curious, others skeptical, but all had to admit the human had proven himself capable. As night fell over the station, Ziara and Ethan walked through the marketplace together, inspecting ships and discussing repairs. Ziara found herself respecting him more with each step. She still carried pride and royal authority, but for the first time she saw a being she could not easily categorize. "You were calm in the battle," Ziara said. "Most beings panic in chaos. How can you remain so steady?" Ethan shrugged. "Panic does not solve problems. Observation does, planning does, action does. I focus on those things, not fear." Ziara looked at him, her violet eyes reflecting the lights of the station. "I think you may teach me something, or perhaps the galaxy has much to learn from humans like you." Ethan nodded, smiling faintly. "We have our strengths, Princess. You may be surprised how far humans can go when we are underestimated." Ziara's pride met his quiet confidence, and neither turned away. A bond was forming, not of friendship yet, but of respect and curiosity. Both realized that together they could achieve more than either could alone. In the shadows of the bustling marketplace, some aliens whispered warnings. Humans were clever, they said, but small. Clitherians were strong, but even they had to respect talent and ingenuity. And one young human, unassuming and quiet, had begun to change perceptions already. Ziara watched Ethan prepare to leave for his next work assignment. Her mind raced with possibilities. The human had walked away from insult, repaired impossible machinery, and saved an entire colony. He had proven that even those who seemed small and weak could achieve greatness through intelligence, creativity, and courage. She clenched her fist lightly. "The galaxy has underestimated humans, and me," she said softly. "Perhaps together we can change that." Ethan waved politely as he boarded his ship, unaware of the thoughts running through the princess's mind. To him, it was just another task completed, another problem solved. But to Ziara, it was the beginning of something extraordinary, a new understanding of humans and the potential they held. The Cletherian palace orbited the gas giant Velora, its towers gleaming in the planet's reflected light. It was a place of grandeur, where diplomats and nobles from across the galaxy gathered, and where decisions shaped the fates of worlds. Princess Ziara moved through the corridors, her steps echoing in the polished hallways. Something weighed on her mind, something beyond her usual royal duties. She had witnessed Ethan's skill and calm confidence. The human had repaired impossible machinery, devised clever strategies, and saved an entire colony. Now she wondered if he could help her with a problem she could not face alone. Ethan arrived at the palace quietly, carrying only his toolkit and a calm expression. Guards stepped aside automatically, though many whispered among themselves. A human entering the royal palace was unusual, even more so for someone uninvited. Ziara greeted him in her private chambers. "Human, I have a situation. Some of my advisors and nobles are unhappy with me, and with you. They believe humans should not be given influence in Cletherian matters. They plan to act against us." Ethan listened carefully, nodding. "What do you want me to do?" Ziara's violet eyes were steady. "I want you to help me see this through. I trust your thinking, your strategy, and your ability to find solutions others might miss." Ethan studied the palace layout, the network of guards, and the communication systems. "I will help, but we must be careful. If the nobles suspect we know their plans, they may act quickly." The next day, Ethan began investigating. He moved quietly, speaking with palace workers, engineers, and low-ranking officers. He observed patterns, noted unusual meetings, and cross-checked schedules. His mind worked differently from the Cletherians around him. He noticed small details that others dismissed as unimportant. Meanwhile, Ziara kept her position. She could not openly act against the nobles yet, as doing so would alert them. She watched Ethan work with fascination. The human moved with quiet confidence, asking precise questions and piecing together information that would have taken her advisors weeks to compile. By the third day, Ethan had discovered the outlines of a plan. A faction of nobles intended to create a false security breach, blaming outside forces, and use the chaos to force Ziara to step down. It was clever, but predictable to Ethan. He had anticipated patterns in behavior, signals, and small mistakes that the nobles had overlooked. "Princess," he said calmly, "they plan to act tonight. We can prevent it if we anticipate their moves. They will use the East Wing communications room to trigger the deception. I suggest a controlled countermeasure that reveals their plan without endangering anyone." Ziara's eyes widened. "You are sure?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, trust the method. It is simple but effective." That evening, Ziara and Ethan executed the plan. Guards were quietly repositioned, alarms monitored without being triggered, and discreet signals sent to alert loyal officers. When the nobles attempted their deception, they were intercepted immediately. Their plot unraveled before it could begin, and the palace remained secure. Ziara watched the scene unfold with amazement. She had expected interference from the human, perhaps hesitation or mistakes, but Ethan remained composed, precise, and effective. He had solved a political problem that could have ended her reign. Afterward, the nobles were questioned, and the palace court realized the human's unusual capabilities. Ethan's actions had not only protected the princess, but had also revealed weaknesses in Cletherian assumptions about humans. Many began to reconsider their biases, recognizing that humans, though physically smaller, possessed intelligence and creativity unmatched by some of the Empire's most educated citizens. Ziara approached Ethan privately. "You have done more than I expected. You have protected me. And more importantly, you have shown me that humans are not to be underestimated." Ethan shrugged, modest but calm. I only observed, analyzed, and acted. That is all anyone can do." Her violet eyes softened, a mixture of admiration and curiosity. "You do not boast. You do not demand praise. You simply act. That is different from anything I have seen in this palace." Ethan smiled faintly. "Actions speak louder than words. That is how humans solve problems." Ziara nodded. "I think I have underestimated your kind. Perhaps the galaxy has too. Your kind may be small in size, but your minds, they are powerful." As the palace settled into quiet, Ethan and Ziara walked together through the corridors. Guards and staff looked on, recognizing the unusual sight, the princess and a human moving side by side, calm, purposeful, and unshaken. Many whispered, but none questioned the trust between them. "You may have changed more than just my view," Ziara said softly. "You may have changed how Cletherians see humans altogether." Ethan remained humble. "I do what I can. Recognition is not necessary. Solving problems is its own reward." For the first time, Ziara felt something unusual: respect, trust, and perhaps even admiration for the quiet human beside her. She realized that humans like Ethan could be valuable allies, not only in engineering or strategy, but in ways that could influence the course of entire systems. Later that night, Ziara looked out at the glowing gas giant below the palace. Ethan had returned to his ship for rest, but she could not stop thinking. A human had proven himself capable of handling challenges that even her most experienced advisors could not solve. He had seen patterns, predicted behavior, and acted decisively. "He is remarkable," she whispered, "and yet he remains calm, unassuming, almost invisible in his presence. The galaxy underestimates humans, but perhaps it should not." Ziara felt a spark of curiosity and challenge. She had begun as a princess testing a human, expecting pride or fear, but she had found someone capable of teaching her new ways to see the universe. She smiled faintly. "The galaxy may not be ready for humans like him, but I am." Ethan, back in his small quarters aboard the station, cleaned his tools and checked his notes. He had completed the task, solved the problems, and protected lives. To him, it was simple logic and action, but to Ziara, it had become something more. He had proven that intelligence, calm thinking, and creativity could change outcomes in ways no brute force could. In the quiet hum of the station, a new understanding had formed. Humans were underestimated, but they were capable of remarkable things. And one human, quiet, clever, and calm, had begun to change not only the princess's view, but the potential of the galaxy itself. The space station Lyrian 7 was alive with celebration. News of the pirate fleet's defeat and the thwarted palace plot had spread quickly, and the station's inhabitants gathered to honor the heroes. Humans, aliens, and traders filled the streets and docks, murmuring about the remarkable events that had taken place. The human engineer, Ethan, had become the center of whispers, though he moved quietly, focusing on his tasks as always. Princess Ziara walked beside him through the crowd. Her silver cloak shone in the station lights, and her violet eyes were sharp, proud, and thoughtful. She could no longer ignore the unusual bond that had formed between them. The calm human who had walked away from her insult, solved impossible problems, and outsmarted the nobles had earned her respect, and something more. As they entered the grand square, the crowd parted respectfully. Ziara raised her hand, signaling silence. Her voice rang clear and commanding. "Citizens of Lyrian 7, she began, today we have witnessed courage, intelligence, and ingenuity beyond what many expected. One among us, though not Cletherian, has shown that strength is not only measured by size, force, or heritage, but by skill, calm thinking, and determination. Eyes turned toward Ethan, who stood quietly at her side. He did not raise his voice, did not bow excessively, but simply met her gaze calmly. "This human," Ziara continued, "has repaired our most advanced machinery, devised clever strategies to defend our colonies, and helped protect this palace from those who would bring chaos. For these deeds, I publicly recognize his contributions." A wave of murmurs and whispers swept through the crowd. Humans being honored by a Cletherian princess? Unheard of. Aliens looked on in surprise, admiration, and even some envy. Ethan nodded slightly, his expression modest. "I only did what I could," he said softly but clearly. "The work needed to be done. That is all." Ziara's violet eyes softened, a mixture of pride, amusement, and respect. "Your humility is as remarkable as your skill," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "Most would expect glory. You expect only to act." Ethan smiled faintly. "Actions are their own reward." For a moment, the princess reflected on all that had occurred. She had insulted him in the marketplace, expecting anger, embarrassment, or fear. Instead, he had turned and walked away without a word. Later, he had repaired impossible machines, planned strategies that saved lives, and uncovered political schemes in her palace. He had done all of this without seeking recognition, without arrogance, simply relying on his mind and courage. Ziara found herself fascinated by him. "Humans are underestimated," she murmured. "Perhaps the galaxy has ignored what you can do. But not I." Ethan looked at her calmly. "I do what I can. That is all anyone can do." The celebrations continued around them. Music filled the streets, holographic displays projected scenes of victory, and citizens shared stories of the brave human engineer and the young princess who had trusted him. Some approached Ethan, offering thanks and admiration, but he responded politely and quietly, never letting pride take over. Ziara observed him closely. She realized something important. Humans like Ethan did not need to boast to gain respect. Their strength came from confidence, intelligence, and action. And one human in particular had changed her view, not only of humans, but of what was possible when underestimated beings were given a chance. Later, in a quiet courtyard overlooking the stars, Ziara approached Ethan. "You have done more than I expected," she said. Her voice was soft but sincere. "You have earned respect, not only from me but from many others. And yet you remain calm, humble, and unshaken." Ethan nodded. "I focus on what matters. Pride or recognition does not change the outcome." Ziara smiled faintly. "Perhaps that is what makes humans so remarkable. You act, and the world notices only afterward." She paused, her violet eyes thoughtful. "I misjudged you. I expected arrogance or fear, but you have neither. You are extraordinary in ways I did not anticipate." Ethan looked at her quietly. "I only do what I know is right." The princess stepped closer. "And yet that is enough to change opinions, challenge assumptions, and even influence the course of the galaxy." She hesitated for a moment. I wish I could see what humans are truly capable of, not just you, but your kind in general. Perhaps together, we can accomplish more than either of us imagined." Ethan considered her words carefully. "Then we will act when the time comes," he said simply. "Together we can solve problems and protect lives." Ziara nodded. For the first time, she felt something new. A partnership, not built on fear, pride, or obligation, but on respect and trust. The human beside her had walked away from insult and proven that courage, intelligence, and quiet confidence could change outcomes. As the stars twinkled above the station, the celebrations continued. But for Ziara and Ethan, the moment was more personal. They had discovered a mutual respect that transcended species, background, and expectation. The galaxy, vast and uncertain, had underestimated humans, but no longer. In the weeks that followed, Ziara and Ethan worked together on projects across the station and beyond, solving problems, designing new technology, and planning defenses. Citizens and nobles alike began to notice that humans were not only capable, but often ingenious. Many Cletherians adjusted their assumptions, learning that strength came in many forms, and that humans, though small in size, could achieve greatness through skill, courage, and determination. And in the quiet moments, Ziara often reflected on the first encounter in the marketplace, the insult she had thrown, and the calm human who had simply walked away. That single moment had changed everything, beginning a partnership that would challenge the galaxy's expectations and redefine what humans could accomplish. Ethan remained humble, focused on action rather than praise, and Ziara watched with admiration. Together, they were a quiet force that would be remembered, not for arrogance or glory, but for intelligence, bravery, and the unshakable strength of character. The galaxy had underestimated humans. One human had proven them wrong, and Princess Ziara, the 19-year-old heir to a powerful empire, had learned that sometimes the smallest and quietest beings could change everything. As the lights of Lyrian 7 sparkled beneath them, the princess smiled at the human beside her. "The galaxy may not be ready for what comes next," she said softly. Ethan looked at the stars. "Then we will show them," he replied. And with that, the first chapter of their extraordinary partnership ended, not with conflict, but with mutual respect, admiration, and the promise of greater challenges to come.